The Other Gods by H.P. Lovecraft. Atop the tallest of earth's peaks dwell the gods of earth, and suffer no man to tell that he hath looked upon them. Lesser peaks they once inhabited, for ever the men from the plains would scale the slopes of rock and snow, driving the gods to higher and higher mountains till now only the last remains. When they left their older peaks, they took with them all signs of themselves, save once, it is said, when they left a carven image on the face of the mountain which they called Engrenranic. But now they have betaken themselves to unknown Kadath in the cold waste where no man treads, and are grown stern, having no higher peak whereto to flee at the coming of men. They are grown stern, and where once they suffered men to displace them, they now forbid men to come, or coming, to depart. It is well for men that they know not of Kadath in the cold waste, else they would seek injudiciously to scale it. Sometimes when earth's gods are homesick they visit in the still night the peaks where once they dwelt, and weep softly as they try to play in the olden way on remembered slopes, just as men have felt the tears of the gods on white-capped Thrai, though they have thought it rain, and have heard the sighs of the gods in the plaintive dawn winds of Lyrian. In cloud ships the gods are wont to travel, and wise cotters have legends that keep them from certain high peaks at night when it is cloudy, for the gods are not lenient as of old. In Ultha, which lies beyond the river sky, once dwelt an old man avid to behold the gods of earth, a man deeply learned in the 7 cryptical books of Haetsont and familiar with the Pentateuch manuscripts of distant and frozen Luma. His name was Badai the Wise, and the villagers tell of how he went up a mountain on the night of the strange eclipse. Bazai knew so much of the gods that he could tell of their comings and goings, and guessed so many of their secrets that he was deemed half a god himself. It was he who wisely advised the burgesses of Ultha when they passed their remarkable law against the slaying of cats, and who first told the young priest, "Atel where it is that black cats go at midnight on St. John's Eve." Bazai was learned in the lore of earth's gods, and had gained a desire to look upon their faces. He believed that his great secret knowledge of gods could shield him from their wrath, so resolved to go up to the summit of high and rocky Haethclé on a night when he knew the gods would be there. Haethclé is far in the stony desert beyond Hethig, for which it is named, and rises like a rock statue in a silent temple. Around its peak the mists play always mournfully, for mists are the memories of the gods, and the gods loved Haethclé when they dwelt upon it in the old days. The gods of earth visit Haethclé in their ships of cloud, casting pale vapours over the slopes as they dance reminiscently on the summit under a clear moon. The villagers of Hethig say it is ill to climb Haethclé at any time, and deadly to climb it by night when pale vapours hide the summit and the moon. But Babazi heeded them not when he came from neighbouring Ultha with the young priest Atul, who was his disciple. Atul was only the son of an innkeeper, and was sometimes afraid. But Bazai's father had been a landgrave who dwelt in an ancient castle, so he had no common superstition in his blood, and only laughed at the fearful cotters. Bazai and Atul went out of Have into the stony desert despite the prayers of peasants, and talked of earth's gods by their campfires at night. Many days they travelled, and from afar saw lofty Haethclé with his aureole of mournful mist. On the 13th day they reached the mountain's lonely base, and Atel spoke of his fears. But Bazai was old and learned and had no fears, so led the way boldly up the slope that no man had scaled since the time of Sun Tzu, who was written of with fright in the mouldy Pentateuch manuscripts. The way was rocky and made perilous by chasms, cliffs and falling stones. Later it grew cold and snowy, and Bazai and Atel often slipped and fell as they hewed and plodded upward with staves and axes. Finally the air grew thin, and the sky changed colour, and the climbers found it hard to breathe. But still they toiled up and up, marvelling at the strangeness of the scene and thrilling at the thought of what would happen on the summit when the moon was out and the pale vapours spread around. For 3 days they climbed higher, higher, and higher toward the roof of the world. Then they camped to wait for the clouding of the moon. For 4 nights no clouds came, and the moon shone down cold through the thin mournful mists around the silent pinnacle. Then on the 5th night, which was the night of the full moon, Bazai saw some dense clouds far to the north, and stayed up with Atel to watch them drawn. Thick and majestic they sailed, slowly and deliberately onward, ranging themselves round the peak high above the watchers, and hiding the moon and the summit from view. For a long hour the watchers gazed, whilst the vapours swirled and the screen of clouds grew thicker and more restless. Barzé was wise in the law of Earth's gods and listened hard for certain sounds, but Atel felt the chill of the vapours and the awe of the night and feared much. And when Barzé began to climb higher and beckon eagerly, it was long before Atel would follow. So thick were the vapours that the way was hard, and though Atel followed on at last, he could scarce see the grey shape of Barzai on the dim slope above in the clouded moonlight. Barzai forged very far ahead, and seemed, despite his age, to climb more easily than Atel, fearing not the steepness that began to grow too great for any save a strong and dauntless man, nor pausing at wide black chasms that Ati scarce could leap. And so they went up wildly over rocks and gulfs, slipping and stumbling, and sometimes awed at the vastness and horrible silence of bleak ice pinnacles and mute granite steeps. Very suddenly Barzai went out of Atel's sight, scaling a hideous cliff that seemed to bulge outward and block the path for any climber not inspired of Earth's gods. Atel was far below, and planning what he should do when he reached the place, when curiously he noticed that the light had grown strong, as if the cloudless peak and moonlit meeting place of the gods were very near. And he scrambled on toward the bulging cliff and litten sky. He felt fears more shocking than any he had known before. Then through the high mists he heard the voice of unseen Barzai shouting wildly in delight. "I have heard the gods. I have heard Earth's gods singing in revelry on Hathikla. The voices of Earth's gods are known to Barzai the prophet. The mists are thin and the mist bright. And I shall see the gods dancing wildly on Hathikla that they loved in youth. The wisdom of Barzai hath made him greater than Earth's gods, and against his will their spells and barriers are as naught. Barzai will behold the gods, the proud gods, the secret gods, the gods of Earth who spurn the sight of men." Till could not hear the voices Barzai heard, but he was now close to the bulging cliff and scanning it for footholds. Then he heard Barzai's voice grow shriller and louder. "The mists are very thin, and the moon casts shadows on the slope. The voices of Earth's gods are high and wild, and they fear the coming of Barzai the wise, who is greater than they. Making the moon's light flickers, as Earth's gods danced against it. I shall see the dancing forms of the gods that leap and howl in the moonlight. The light is dimmer, and the gods are afraid." Whilst Barzai was shouting these things, Atel felt a spectral change in the air, as if the laws of Earth were bowing to greater laws. For though the way was steeper than ever, the upward path was now grown fearsomely easy, and the bulging cliff proved scarce an obstacle when he reached it, and slid perilously up its convex face. The light of the moon had strangely failed, and as Atel plunged upward through the mists he heard Barzai, the wise, shrieking in the shadows. As the moon is dark, and the gods dance in the night, there is terror in the sky, for upon the moon hath sunk an eclipse foretold in no books of men or of Earth's gods. There is unknown magic on Hathikla, for the screams of the frightened gods have turned to laughter. And the slopes of ice shoot up endlessly into the black heavens, whither I am plunging. Hey! At last, in the dim light, I behold the gods of Earth. And now Atel, slipping dizzily up over inconceivable steeps, heard in the dark a loathsome laughing, mixed with such a cry as no man else ever heard, save in the phlegethon of unrelatable nightmares. A cry wherein reverberated the horror and anguish of a haunted lifetime packed into one atrocious moment. The other gods, the gods of the outer hells that guard the feeble gods of Earth. Look away, go back, and do not see the vengeance of the infinite abysses, that cursed, that damnable pit. Merciful gods of Earth, I am falling into the sky. And as Atel shut his eyes and stopped his ears and tried to jump downward against the frightful pull from unknown heights, there resounded on Hathikla that terrible peal of thunder which awaked the good cotters of the plains and the honest burgesses of Hathernaya and caused them to behold through the clouds that strange eclipse of the moon that no book ever predicted. And when the moon came out at last, Atel was safe on the lower snows of the mountain without sight of Earth's gods or of the other gods. Now it is told in the mouldy Petnacotic manuscripts that Sansu found naught but wordless ice and rock when he climbed Hatheg's play in the youth of the world. Yet when the men of Ultha and Nir and Hathig crushed their fears and scaled that haunted steep by day in search of Barzai the wise, They found graven in the naked stone of the summit a curious and cyclopean symbol 50 cubits wide, as if the rock had been riven by some titanic chisel. And the symbol was like to one that learned men have discerned in those frightful parts of the Pnakotic manuscripts which are too ancient to be read. This they found. Barzai the Wise they never found, nor could the holy priest Atel ever be persuaded to pray for his soul's repose. Moreover, to this day the people of Ulthar and Nia and Hethic fear eclipses, and pray by night when pale vapours hide the mountain top and the moon, and above the mists on Haithcla Earth's gods sometimes dance reminiscently, for they know they are safe, and love to come from unknown Kadath in ships of cloud and play in the olden way, as they did when Earth was new and men not given to the climbing of inaccessible places.